What's going on, guys? It's Danny from Slow Restoration. As you can see, that escalated really quickly last time, so we have the door off. We need to, these hinges are absolutely shot, so we got some pins coming. They should be here actually any minute. Anxious to get these swapped over, and it looks like maybe something caught the door and pulled it. You can see right here, it's pretty common on these. People do stupid stuff and push on them and whatever. This is welded to the pillar, this hinge part, and it gets pulled mainly from like pushing on the door too hard. It just works this out, fatigues this metal, works it out. I fixed these before. With the door off, you can actually take a block of wood, like a 2x4, put here, and just take a sledgehammer and close that gap right back up. It's just a metal bent. It's not that big a deal, and it helps tremendously with the air leak going down the road. But anyway, we have that door off to fix these, so we might as well address that too. First step in doing these pins is I like getting the ones that bolt together. They do have one with just a clip at the bottom, but the bolt together ones you can kind of tighten up a little bit to your liking. So the first step is remove the door, obviously, and it's actually very easy on these. There's 10mm bolts, or at least 10mm head size bolts, and there's one here in the hinge itself, and one here on the limiting strap or the detent strap. And then obviously you have your harness that passes through. It goes through and kind of wraps around. There is one plug, where is it? I seem to have lost it. There's one down here, and then there's one that snakes up through and plugs in right here in this spot. So in my particular kit here, we have the pins themselves, the bushings, and for one door you have 4 of everything. We need to get these old pins out, replace the bushings, and we will reuse this piece. Some of the kits you get do come with this new centerpiece, but I think ours is still good, so we're going to try and reuse it here. We won't know until we get it apart. GM did not bolt these together. They did swedge the end of it, so we need to cut this bottom edge off. This one has a washer. That one probably did at one time, but it fell off. And so I'm just going to take my grinder, my whiz wheel here, and cut the bottom of the pin off, the top and the bottom, and that should allow the pins to come out and the whole assembly to come apart. And with that cut off, we can just wiggle that right out. The bushing actually just fell out because it was totally shot. But once we get that out, this one's a little bit tighter. We might have to grind a little bit more there and get that washer off. Once that one comes off, obviously this will just come right apart. Take notice to how this was put in there. But other than that, we will do the same thing with the bottom, and then we can start reassembly if these holes aren't too egged out. If they're let go too long, I think we'll be all right on this one. If they're let go too long, this is egged out a little bit. The metal here actually gets out around, and your new bushing won't be tight either, but it'll definitely be a lot tighter than loose like that. Once you have all that disassembled, we'll take the remaining part of these bushings. Like I said, there aren't much of them left on this particular one. If yours aren't quite that bad, they will be a little bit harder to get out. You might have to take a punch and kind of peen them over and then push them up out. Once we have all this cleaned up, I might take a sander and take the burrs off that, maybe even shoot a little bit of paint on it. I'm not sure yet. Obviously this thing's a little grungy, but then it'll be time to start test fitting our new bushings, get our pins and these put back together. But let me get this cleaned up. All right, so after cleaning that up a little bit, we're going to take our bushings, and the bushings are going to be, one's going to drop in from the top here, and it is a tiny bit loose, but it's not horrible. And then the other one's actually going to push up. Actually, it's going to drop in from the top too, I'm sorry. So it'll go down there, and again, it's pretty tight. Normally you would have to kind of press these in. These are dropping right in, but they're still pretty tight. Not too bad. Definitely better than I thought they were going to be. And then as far as the pins go, you have 2 different pins. So one has the knurl down below the shoulder and one has the knurl above the shoulder. And if we grab one of these pieces, you can see one hole, the bottom hole is actually larger than the top hole. In the top hole you can actually see the kind of the factory knurls in it. So what this does is it goes through, it's a little bit tight, so the bottom was a little sticky, but the top one we'll show you, it just kind of slips through here. So this piece goes in between and the bottom bushing gets sandwiched. As you can see that little bit of a gap there. So we'll put these in and kind of line the hole up here close. The bushing will, or the pin will finish lining it up, but we're real close there. And with the top one, we will grab the one with the knurls at the bottom and it'll go down through like that, and the knurl should grab into that once we tighten it up, and the bottom one gets the knurls in the top. We'll line that up. So basically that's it. They're still loose because we have to put our nuts and washers on, but we're going to go back and grease all these really well. I just wanted to kind of show you how it goes together before I did that. And exact same thing with the bottom. So before we get too carried away with that, I did mention this top one. You can kind of see the seam seal crack there. So what happens over time, just wear and miles and riding down the road and opening this door up too far, it kind of pulls. This top hinge plate is welded to your pillar and it kind of pulls this out. So this whole thing kind of twists on there, and we can fix that. So with the pins out, everything out of the way, door out of the way, we're going to take a block of wood and set in there and actually take a hammer or sledgehammer and just kind of drive that back in to close that gap back up. And that will help drastically with sealing on the weather stripping. The pins are part of that issue, as they wear. It allows the door to sag out and sag down, but this being pulled out is the second cause for the leaking weather stripping. All right, so we got a block of wood in there and I ran a screw down through this upper hinge, just kind of hold that so I don't have to hold it. And we got our nice snap-on dead blow. We're going to give that a couple whacks. Obviously be careful, you'll be replacing the fender also, but the point is just to close that gap back up and put that hinge, upper hinge, back to where it was factory. Got all this assembled and loosely or lubed up and loosely assembled. Now we're just going to go ahead and tighten all these up, and it should really tighten all them up and keep them from wiggling around, hopefully. And we'll almost be ready to put our door back on. And that's what it looks like back together. So back under the hood of the Duramax here, we did pull this resonator tube off. I slipped it back on because we had some other stuff to do, but we did get that off. I'll set that over here, and I think I'm gonna dive into this thing a little bit. We did end up with a coolant leak. I don't know if I mentioned that yet or not. Right here's your upper like thermostat radiator hose assembly. Right off the back here is that, if you can see that, and right about there you can see there's a split in that hose. Someone's already been there because there's some hose clamps on it. So I'm gonna dive into that a little bit, and I think we're gonna pull the mouthpiece off here, the turbo too, and kind of check the condition of the turbo itself. I know we're jumping around a little bit here, but with this front end stuff out, we can actually walk up to the engine a little bit better. And really, we need to get this engine sorted out, and well, not even necessarily sorted out yet. We just need to know what we have before we go too far with the rest of this. So let me get a couple of these parts pulled off, and we'll hopefully learn something. All right, so we got the mouthpiece off the turbo. As you can see, now we can actually see the turbo impeller, and there's an issue. So obviously there's a little bit of oil there, but it's kind of normal because the PCV system is right in front of this in the air intake system. So any fumes you get kind of run back through the turbo. Kind of normal for them to be slightly oily, But what is not normal is to be locked up. This turbo is totally locked up. I can't get it to move at all. There's no play up and down. There's no play in and out, but there's also no rotation. So for some reason this turbo is completely locked up, and that's a problem. So I'm not sure where I want to go with that. I don't know if I just want to pull the turbo, or if I want to try to diagnose and maybe get that thing to spin, or pull the downpipe, see if there's something stuck in the exhaust side, or what I want to do here. But for right now, I need to just figure out my next step here. And that's why this thing, I don't know if I showed it on video, but when you really heavy under a heavy throttle, even sitting there not in gear, just heavy throttle, it would dump black smoke, and that's because there is zero boost. Not even zero boost. At that point, the air intake is being restricted a bit by the turbo just sitting there, not being able to spin. So it's just dumping fuel through, thinking it's accelerating, and there's no boost, no airflow at all going through the engine because of that turbo. So again, a little snag in the road here. I am gonna fix that coolant line, and we may even start it up, because if this thing has further issues like you know, blown head gaskets, then this engine's probably going to come out of this truck, and then we'll do something different. Maybe we'll do a full build, who knows at this point. But yeah, I need to make some decisions here, and I know what you guys are going to say. You're going to want to see a full race truck build, but that wasn't really my purpose on buying this thing. It was more to have a nice, reliable tow vehicle with a little bit of power, and not have to worry about it. So let me know what you guys think. I already know what it's going to be, but it is what it is. We just got to move forward from here. All right, we have that line replaced, at least temporary for now. Just gonna have to come right back off, because obviously the turbo needs replaced. But we do have coolant in it. It's running. It's actually slowly coming up to temperature. So far it looks okay. Go around the side here. Slowly coming up there on temperature. Check engine light is on now, because we have the mass airflow sensor well, not unhooked, but there's no air flowing through it because of the intake tube off, or the inlet tube. But as you can see, or as you can hear, it sounds like there's a whistle. So I mean, that does sound like a turbo spinning. So I'm wondering now if the exhaust side of the turbo is not spinning, and the shaft might be broke inside. I don't know. We won't know until we get that turbo off, but, or unless that's just a whistle because the exhaust is blowing through a non-spinning turbo, which also could be. So we're gonna let this run for a little bit, make sure it's not, you know, if you have a blown head gasket, this is gonna get rock hard, because it's gonna build pressure in the intake or the coolant system, and it's gonna start pushing coolant. So far I don't see any bubbles coming up through. We're not really building too much pressure at all, but there is no, we're just idling, so there's no real pressure on the engine at this point either. With the cooling system looking pretty good, again, until we get pressure in there, we won't really know about the head gaskets, but so far it's looking good. We jumped on Marketplace, of course, and we found a turbo. So we're in the box truck in the NPR, and we are on our way to pick up a replacement turbo for the Duramax. It's just a stock LLY turbo. It's supposed to be good, about 120,000 miles on it, which is a lot less than our truck has. So let's get it, and I guess we're going to be putting on a turbo. Well, there is something you don't see every day. An Amish on a steam tractor.